Welcome to another episode of the Para Cave podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Para Cave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Para Cave podcast. Troy Warner here, and it is the Game Day preview podcast for round number 3. It is the Eels taking on the Bulldogs at Commbank Stadium on Sunday at 4:05pm. Now, I was going to have a celebrity fan lined up for this Game Day preview, but unfortunately it did not happen. But we have plans for that to be happening in the round 2 clash, I guess you could say, the second time we play the Bulldogs on the King's birthday weekend, so stay tuned for that one. I think that one's in June, so stay tuned for that one, and I will have that special guest on for a Game Day preview. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do it this time, but nevertheless, I am still here. And look, let's just start off with a few. Before we get into Sunday's game, let's get into a few little stats. As you know, I love my stats when it comes to rugby league. And look, this is all thanks to the Rugby League Project. So if you ever need any rugby league information about games, players, this, that, and the other, check out Rugby League Project online, as they have a ton of information. So this is where I got all the information from here. Now, since 1947, there's been 167 matches. The Bulldogs have won 86 and Parramatta 76. At Commbank Stadium, where this game is going to be played on the weekend, the Eels hold a overall lead of 5 wins to 1, only the 6 games played there since 2019. Now, look, that is probably not a comparison as to where these two sides are today. The Eels have probably been a little bit, or especially since or before 2022 and before that, they will probably had the edge over the Bulldogs. Certainly last year, the Bulldogs had the edge over the Eels, and even 23 as well. But the Bulldogs were the second team to beat Parramatta at Commbank Stadium in 2019 when they opened the new stadium there. The Panthers being the first one there. So, interesting one there. As I said before, Parramatta have won the last 5 straight games between these two clubs at Commbank Stadium. The last 10 games, stretching back, I think it's to 2020, it has been Parramatta 8 and the Bulldogs 2. Now, as I said just before, there has been, the Parramatta were pretty much a better side than the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs, as we know, were going through those massive rebuilding stages. They were down near the bottom of the ladder. They weren't making finals. They made the finals last year in a long time, but they still managed to get a couple of good wins, the Bulldogs, against Parramatta, because with these rivalry games between, especially these two sides, and any rivalry game, it does not matter where your team is on the ladder. They could be one could be down the bottom, one could be up the top, but they always seem to step it up for this game because they are the rivals. And as we know, in the 1980s, the Bulldogs and the Eels were the team of the 80s. Now, that is a massive debate, one that myself, a Parramatta fan, would say that Parramatta are the team of the 80s, having won 4 premierships, 3 in a row, 81, 82, 83, and 86. But Bulldogs fans, they would come at me as well and say that the Bulldogs were the team of the 80s, having won in 1980, 84, 85, and 88 as well. So, and played in 86. Although these two sides did play in a grand final in 1984. So there could have been the four-peat for Parramatta in 84. However, Mark Bugden had other ideas about that one. Speaking of famous games that I can remember anyway, between these two sides, and please let me know if there is any other games that I have missed or some of your favourite games as well. There's one in here that is a least favourite of mine, and I think you know which one that is. But as I mentioned, 84 grand final, the Bulldogs won that one 6-4, and the 86 grand final, Parramatta won that one 4-2, the first and only, so far anyway, tryless grand final. So 4-2, Mick Cronin and Ray Price's last game. So they are two classic games there. Only 2 points in both of those games. The Bulldogs won 6-4 in 84, and it was 4-2 in 86 to the Eels. 1992. Now, this was probably a little bit of a lean period for the Parramatta Eels, especially after Peter Sterling retired, and also some of those other players retired as well. Bit of a lean period, 1992. The only highlight I can think of in there was the game against the touring Great Britain side. But there was also a win against the Bulldogs as well. And believe it or not, it was at the Wacker over there in Western Australia. They took a few games over there in the 90s. Parramatta played a couple of games over there, actually. I remember, I think there was one against Balmain over there as well. But this occasion, Parramatta got the win 18-12. And I'm pretty sure that in that year they were wearing the black eye paint underneath the eyes there. Scott Mann unfortunately got sent off in that game, so no good for Scott there. Fast forward to about 1996, and you have... we'll talk about players who have played for both clubs a little bit later on, but you have obviously the big four defection from Jared McCracken, Jim Dimmick, Dean Pay and Jason Smith. Look, the game that you know that I don't want to talk about, but I will bring it up, is the 1998 prelim final, and you know that whenever I talk to Bulldogs or Eels former players who played in that game, I always ask them about that game, even though I don't like talking about it. It was one hell of a weird game, so the less spoken about that one, the better, but that was an unbelievable game. 2001, one that sticks out for me, and a young Nathan Hindmarsh scoring that runaway try at the Sydney Showground. The Bulldogs played out of there for a couple of seasons. That was a night game. I think it was a Friday night game. And one of the games there that Hindy runaway try. It was probably an edge back rower there, and he got the ball. I forget who passed it to him, but he just took off, and no one was going to catch him. And he scored that try. 2007 semi-final, Parramatta won 25 points to 6. Obviously, the 2009 prelim final, that was played in front of a crowd of 74,549. Now, on that occasion, that was at the Commbank Stadium there. And on that occasion, the crowd was split in half. So one half was blue and white, one half was blue and gold, which the players who played in that game, again, I asked them if I ever get the chance to interview them. They always said that that was an amazing thing. That was the best atmosphere that they have ever played in. And some of those players have played in big games, grand finals, test matches, origins, but on that night, it was the best atmosphere that they have ever played in. And then there was, I forget which year it was, whether it was 2011 or 12. Someone will correct me here. But it was Nathan Hindmarsh versus Michael Ennis. The infamous footage there of Hindy running away, then turning around, and then just going at Michael Ennis, and he gets asked about that all the time, Hindy, but I think it's in the podcast episode number 50. I asked him about that one, so check that one out. But there's some of the famous games that I can remember of. Obviously the Bulldogs fans will disagree. There's a few more that I should say. There was one 2024 that they won on the King's birthday weekend. There was one there, I think that might have been that game, or 2023 possibly, where Matt Burton knocked the ball out of Mitchell Moses' hands when he was going to score. So Yes, I quite remember that one, but there's probably some other ones there that Bulldogs fans will remind me of, no doubt. Now, players who have played for both clubs, geez, there's been a few, and some familiar names, that is for sure. As I mentioned before, there was the Big Four, the Jared McCracken, Jim Dimmick, Dean Page, Jason Smith. Now, they were some of my favourite players when they played for Parramatta. Obviously not when they played for the Bulldogs, but one player in particular there, Jared McCracken, used to love the way he played, even when he was at the Bulldogs. I was wishing he would be at Parramatta. And then he made his way over to the Eels, and I was happy about that one. And he has always reminded me, or I've always thought that he would be one of these players that if he was not a Kiwi, then he would be perfect for State of Origin. Definitely Jared McCracken there. Adam Peake, Mark Bugden, Jonathan Wright, Frank Pritchard, Willie Tonga, Jamin Salmon, Andrew Ryan won a competition as captain over at the Bulldogs. Ben Roberts, Ofahiki Ogden, Rennie Matua won a competition with the Bulldogs and then came over in his later years of rugby league and played for the Eels. Sean Lane, who was playing on the weekend, he played one game against the Eels for the Bulldogs. Chris Keating, Reid Marnie, who was also playing in this game on Sunday. The smiling assassin, I guess you could say, or the smiling goal kicker, Krishnan Inu, Daniel Irvine, Will Hopewadi, Blake Green, Kieran Foran, he played for both clubs as well, and Paul Dunn as well. And now one other player that is going to be playing for both clubs, represent both clubs, is Josh Addo-Carr. Now, at the time of this recording, he has been named on an extended bench under number 21, Josh Addo-Carr. He has served his suspension for off-field incident last year, and this was his due back game. Now, he, as I said, number 21, extended bench. Without knowing anything of the ins and outs or whatever, I expect him to play. I guess we just have to wait till Saturday, 4 p.m. to find out if he is or not playing. But I think he will play against his former club. Right, now to this game here on Sunday the 23rd of March, 4:05 p.m. at Commbank Stadium. The Eels sit in 17th position, having 2 losses so far this season. The Bulldogs having 2 wins so far this season. They find themselves sitting in 3rd position. Now, as I said earlier, there's a bit of a changing of the guard because Parramatta haven't had the best of seasons since 2022 grand final, and the Bulldogs, they made the semi-finals last year. There is a lot of confidence about them at the moment. They are hoping and expecting to make the semi-finals again this year and go better and deeper into the competition. So there is a little bit of a change in the guard. The Bulldogs have gone into this game as favourites, and rightfully so as well, having won their first 2 games, and Parramatta playing pretty ordinary in theirs. Now, only the one change at the moment to this Parramatta side. Dean Hawkins comes into the team as halfback for, obviously, Mitchell Moses is still out. Round 7 or 8, I'm hearing that he may be back from his foot injury. So Dean Hawkins, now he was brought to the club from South Sydney pretty much for this situation when if Mitchell got injured or if he was on representative duties, then Dean Hawkins could step up, slot into that halfback position, and run this team. Now, no other changes to last weekend's team. Joash Papali has been named at number 19. Ryan Madison at number 18, having played New South Wales Cup last week. Dan Kerr, who was the 18th man last week. Josh Addo-Carr, as I said, number 21. Joey Lussick, 22. they're coached by Jason Riles. Now, the big news out of the Bulldogs camp is obviously their two big injury losses. They played the Titans last week at Belmore Sports Ground. Unfortunately, 2 MCL injuries to 2 different players. One being their 5'8", Matt Burton, and the other being Viliami Kickout, their big second rower. Now, Bailey Haywood, he comes into the side at 5'8". Looks like, or I'm not too sure if it has been announced or not yet, but looks like he may get a contract extension at the Bulldogs. So he steps into Matt Burton's shoes, and a pretty good get coming off the bench into Big Kickow's shoes is Satili Tupanua. So I really like Tupanua. I like him as a player. Would have liked to have seen him at Parramatta, but he's landed at the Bulldogs now. Playing some great footy there so early on in the season. He just slots straight into that second row spot. So they are coached by Coach Cameron Serraldo. Wyatt Raymond is the referee, and Jared Sutton is the senior review official. So, going into this game, let's have a look at the team stats. Now, just quickly, as I mentioned before, the Bulldogs got a win last year in the King's birthday game, 22 points to 18. I think it was round 2 last year at Commbank Stadium. So this venue, it was round 1. It was the opening game of the season for both clubs last year. Parramatta got the win, 26 points to 8 over the Bulldogs. That was last year. As I said, different sides this year. Now, going into a few stats from this year, the big concern for Parramatta is points conceded. 88 points so far, only 24 points scored. For the Bulldogs, they're half that, 44 points conceded, 68 points scored. So the Bulldogs can score some points, albeit they've played the Dragons and the Titans. Parramatta obviously played the Melbourne Storm down there in Melbourne and the West Tigers at Commbank Stadium. Completion rates are very similar for both sides, 76% for Parramatta, 74% for the Bulldogs. So let's get to this game. What are my thoughts about it? Well, look, obviously there is a lot of pressure on Dylan Brown at the moment, with Mitchell Moses being out. This is Dean Hawkins' first game in the top grade for Parramatta this season. But there will still be that big pressure on Dylan Brown, that is for sure. Look, I'm not going to go on about it because we've all seen it in the news and heard about it, read about it, and the like, that he signed this massive contract with Newcastle. He's got this year at Parramatta to go. And now, last weekend at Commbank Stadium, he was booed. Now, look, I don't have a problem with booing fans. That just shows you how emotional and passionate they are. Parramatta fans I'm talking about. You may even have thought that it could have even been Tigers fans last weekend as well. But, look, I'm not going to do it. As long as it doesn't cross the line, then booing at a football match is okay. Look, Dylan was one of, if not the last to leave the field last week after going around the ground, signing autographs, taking selfies and the like. He is a great human being and a great player, but it just shows you how emotional and passionate the Parramatta fans are when it comes to their players, and disappointed, I guess, they are that he has signed with Newcastle. So a lot of pressure on Dylan. He hasn't had the best of 2 games so far this season. New recruit Zach Lomax had a better performance last week, hoping he's going to have a big task this week against, I think it's Bronson Cherry as well. So that'll be a big task for him. Big test. Will Penasini coming up against Stephen Crichton. That'll be a big contest as well. The forwards for Parramatta, well, I think, look, they have to step it up, I think. Junior Paolo, Sean Lane especially, I think those two need to really step it up. Junior, being the captain, needs to lead from the front. Jack Williams and Jermaine Hopgood, look, they just try their asses off each and every game, tackle their hearts out. So they will do that, no doubt, again this week. Riley Smith off the bench, looking forward to seeing him run around again. The more experience he gets in first grade, the better. Look, I think Parramatta fans will be booing Reid Marnie, perhaps. Just getting back to that booing. I think they may do that. We saw last year, I think it may have been the game at Parramatta round 1. Big RCG and some of the other Para boys get in the mind of Reid Marnie, because we all know that Reid Marnie can be a little bit of a pest on the field. So if you can get under his skin, then who knows what can happen. It just might set him off and he might end up with 10 in the bin. Who knows? But look, I think this is a must-win game for Parramatta, I think, because they need to get their season off to a winning start. They've had those 2 losses early on. If they can get a win at home, it will not only take a bit of pressure off them, it will not only take a little bit of pressure off them getting a win, it'll probably give them confidence as well, moving on to next week's hard game against Manly. For the Bulldogs, they probably have circled this game and looking forward to it. And look, they just want to beat Parramatta, because that's who they want to beat each and every time, is Parramatta. We all see the Bulldogs fans; they hate Para. Speaking of fans, look, I'm expecting a big crowd out there at Commbank Stadium. So Parramatta fans, get out there. Let's be loud. Let's be proud. Let's not be embarrassed off the field by the Bulldogs fans. They are coming to Commbank Stadium. There is going to be plenty of them. They are going to be loud. They're going to be colourful in their blue and white. They're going to have their drums, etc. They're going to have their chants. But let's outdo them. So, every Parramatta fan, if you can get to the game, Parramatta Eels members, if you can get to the game, get to the game. Look, last weekend I think there was 18,000 at the game. It was a stinking hot day. If I just fast forward and have a look at the weather report on my trusty phone here, Sunday 19 to 26, so a lot cooler than last Sunday at Parramatta. A couple of days ago, I think it said it was going to be raining, so that looks like it's just going to be overcast. So it's going to be a little bit cooler on Sunday at Parramatta, so that it could be good playing conditions. Certainly great conditions for the fans as well, unlike last weekend's heat. So we may see, fans have questioned Parramatta and their fitness. Maybe these conditions will suit them a lot better as well. So the key for Parramatta is to get off to that good start. They need to get off the good start, score that first try, get a little bit of confidence about them. If they can limit their handling errors, if they can limit their missed tackles as well, then they will go very well to winning this game. It certainly will be interesting if Josh Addo-Carr comes into this game, which I am expecting he will. I dare say he will probably take Jordan Samrani's spot, who had an absolute great game last weekend against the Tigers in his NRL debut. Shame to see him go, but he isn't in the top 30 of the Eels, so had to get a special dispensation for him to play. And I do expect Josh Addo-Carr to come back. Whether the Bulldogs will target Josh because they know what he plays like in defence, who knows? But certainly that's probably a smart play. Whether Josh has got a few little tips for this current Eels side, I'm sure he does, but can't just be relying on that. It is a team sport, it is a team effort. So Parramatta, get off to a good start, limit the errors, limit the penalties, limit the missed tackles, because we all know that this Bulldogs team can score points. I'm interested to see what the kicking game will be like this weekend from the Bulldogs with no Matt Burton there. So thankfully Isaiah Iongi won't have to catch the big Burton bombs. I'm not 100% sure what Bailey Hayward's kicking game is like, but I couldn't imagine his or Toby Sexton's as big as Matt Burton. So also their goal kicker is out of action this week, so potentially Stephen Crichton may take up the goal kicking duties for the Bulldogs with Matt Burton out. That's just a guess anyway. Look, to predictions, I will say it will be 20. I think I said on the Talking Para podcast, I think I said 20 points to 16. I'm going to say Josh Addo-Carr is playing. I'm going to say he will be the first try scorer of the match. And I think I said on the Talking Para podcast as a bold prediction, I think there's going to be 25,873, I think, so in the crowd, which will be a fantastic crowd. Great atmosphere. Also, too, on Sunday, it is Old Boys Day as well, so you will see some familiar faces out there at Parramatta for the Parramatta Old Boys. Look, join us over at Parramatta Leagues Club for the march to the stadium, 3:15 I believe it is. Gather there at 3 o'clock anyway. And some of those legends will be joining in the march to Commbank Stadium. So come to Parramatta Leagues Club. That's where I will be pre-match. I'll be getting my pre-match feed into me, no doubt. And so if you see me out and about, I'll be at Parramatta Leagues Club, and I'll also be over at Commbank Stadium as well. So if you see me out and about, come and say good day, and we'll cheer on the Eels. So thank you for listening to this game day preview. I hope you like these game day previews. And I know it says game day preview on it, but I just bring it out a couple of days anyway, a couple of days earlier for you guys to listen to. So next game is against Manly. I will see if I can reach out to a Manly fan and we will do the game day preview together. But anyway, enjoy your rugby league over the weekend. Let's go Para, let's get the win. The Para Cave podcast by the fan, for the fans. Go Para!
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Para Cave podcast. See you next time.